السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Walaikum assalam. Um, I hope I'm in the right forum.
Yeah, is this
Islamic belief.
Islamic beliefs?
Yes. Okay. Wonderful.
Oh, mashallah, nice to have you. Your name is Deborah, Sister Deborah?
Yes, Sister Deborah, last name Webster.
Mashallah. Yeah, nice to have you with us.
Okay, it's good to be here. I'm looking forward to learning more and more.
Inshallah. Yeah, you hopefully you'll find this course very interesting.
Wonderful.
I see I see others have joined too. Brother
Okay.
Kyle, he joined. Um Faizan, I'm not familiar who Faizan is.
Let me. I'm just muting for a minute. Somebody's at my door. One second.
Oh, sure, no problem. Faizan, Faraz, Annie, I'm not familiar with. Hassan Sheikh, is that the Hassan Sheikh I think it is?
Yes, Habibi, Sheikh Hassan.
Oh, okay. MashaAllah.
Assalamualaikum.
Yeah. Wa alaikum salam. Nice to have you in the class.
Nice to have you teaching the class. I'm excited.
Yeah, where did you hear about it?
I live around Princeton now,
Oh, okay.
Central Jersey.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Nice. Yeah, nice to have you attend. I think you'll enjoy this. Brother Sohaib joined too. MashaAllah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Yeah, nice to have you with us, Brother Sohaib.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Wonderful. Glad you're teaching.
Alhamdulillah. Brother Umar's here. Um,
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. And it's kind of early in the morning, but Brother Faizan, I'm not familiar with who you are. Do you want to introduce yourself? I think he might be away. Brother Faraz?
Hey, Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, I'm actually, Moin. I'm actually one of his good friends. I grew up with him before he moved to North Jersey,
Oh,
and
okay, mashallah.
so he highly recommended this class. And I've taken a similar class a long time ago, but just
Hmm.
pieces of it with Mufti Niyaz. And
Okay.
since Moin kind of highly recommended to take it, and now that it's online and very convenient, I decided to give it another shot.
Great, nice to have you with us. Yeah, are you
Yeah,
from South Jersey, from Delran?
yeah. I grew up in
Oh,
Delran,
nice.
and
Nice.
now my parents are still there, but now I work in North Jersey, so I pretty much have an apartment over there.
Nice, mashallah. It's good to have you with us. Uh, and Sister Annie, is that it? Do you want to introduce
Yes.
yourself?
Yep, absolutely. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
So I live in North Jersey, and
Hmm.
last year I took this similar class with Brother Levon Brown, and they
Hmm.
suggested to continue with this, inshallah. So,
MashaAllah. Yeah, hopefully you'll find this useful.
yes, inshallah.
And I see Ismail joined. Is that the Ismail I think it is?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ismail. I'm from Boston, Cambridge. I'm a friend of Naz, and inshallah, looking forward to learning. I've
Nice.
learned like other Islamic courses, but I never covered Aqeeda like in depth. So, looking forward
Hmm.
to this, inshallah.
Nice. And Ismail, for those of you who don't know, he's the main man behind all of Sheikh Yasser Fahmi's operations. So I've known him since we were kids. So mashallah. I'm really happy for him to join the course. And Sister Andre, you want to introduce yourself?
Assalamu alaikum. Please forgive me. I have bronchitis. Um,
Oh, no problem.
please,
May Allah make it easy for you.
inshallah, alhamdulillah. Um, my name is Andrea. I've taken several classes. The beginning Muslim class, and several other classes. So I wanted to continue on. This platform is best for me to get some Islamic education.
Awesome, awesome, inshallah. That's great. Yeah, nice to have all of you with us. And I hope you'll find this course very interesting, thought-provoking. Um, uh, I have prepared like a couple PowerPoints, but I've also prepared a website for you guys as well. I'm gonna link it in the chat right now. I'm just thinking in the about the future as well, because um just wanted to make this subject as accessible as possible to people. And so I made a website where you can actually explore the text that we're gonna be reading. And I'm gonna be adding a couple other texts to it as well. So that, especially if you guys learn this class, you guys take notes or whatever it is, you can then, teach your families or teach your friends if that opportunity ever arises, and you can just have that website there as a reference, and it should be something that you can do, right? So, inshallah. First of all, I guess the first question is, how familiar are you guys with the subject of Aqeedah? Does anyone know what that subject is? Before we get into the class, just want to get a feel for everyone's knowledge. I know some of you have said that you guys did a similar course before.
We talked about it briefly in the
Mhm.
being Muslim class with Imam Brown, but Akida, from what I know, is does it translate directly into like the creed of Islam?
Yeah, yeah, for the Creed of Islam. Exactly. So, the way we're gonna do it is basically there are two primers, right? For teaching Aqeedah. One of them is Aqeedah Tahawiyya, which is the first thing that we're gonna start off with. And sections of it, I mean, I'm gonna try to it's a very basic book, right? And if we were to like teach it in a very basic way, then like we'd have maybe, 2 or 3 sessions, right? We just sort of read off the list and, you have to believe this, you have to believe this, you have to believe this, right? But I want to make it more exciting. So what I decided to do is I'm gonna bring in like my own, you know, personal background. Actually, I should have actually told you guys a little bit about myself, right? So I started studying Aqeedah through the works of Said Nursi, rahimahullah ta'ala. So Said Nursi was a really famous Ottoman scholar of the 20th century, right? So World War One veteran. And so he's one of the big, big revivalists of the 20th century. And his main focus was Aqeedah. So when I was at Drexel, I think Hassan, he remembers. So when I was at Drexel, I had this friend that he was an expert in Said Nursi's works. And so my friends and I would go over there and, we'd have the halakas, we'd read his works. And this continued for like several years, and it still continues today. So that's my background with Islamic theology. And from there, like I sort of branched on and, I read the classical works. Now I'm doing a course in Sharh al-Aqaid, which is a very advanced Aqidah book. And then, I studied a couple texts at Darul Fath with some of my teachers at Safina Society. So I want to bring some of that experience to this course, right? And make it a little bit more exciting than just say, okay, you believe in Allah, you believe in the prophets, you believe in XYZ, and then, we can go home, right? So if some parts of it become a little complicated, I want you to ask questions, right? So everyone put a thumbs up that everyone's gonna ask questions. Okay. So, and the other thing is that we will be having quizzes. So I'll try to put like, I don't know, so we have two modules, right? We have Aqeedah Tahawiyya and Kharida. So I'll try to have maybe like 3 quizzes per module. And the quizzes are going to be very simple. So if you're not asking questions, you won't, unfortunately, you won't learn like, uh, the juicy stuff, right? So because the quizzes are going to be super simple, right? So there's nothing to worry about there. So inshallah, let's begin the class. I know we don't have much time. We have only an hour. So let me share my screen here. And let me just give you an overview of by the way, I'm live streaming this on Facebook if you guys are okay. Sorry, on YouTube. You guys are okay with it? I mean, I'll make the playlist private so you guys can look back and watch the video. Let me just give you a brief tour of the website because you can use this during your class and you can also use this during your exam too. So the quizzes are going to be open book. Okay. So if you go to here, the home page, and you click start with the Hawiyah, and you're gonna have the entire text of the Hawiyah here, right? So and any confusing words, I've added commentary on it. So I know just to share like if you raise your hands, how many of you know Arabic or can read Arabic? Anyone? Okay, I see like one or two, right? So yeah, but I think it'll still be useful. If you go here, you'll still see like I added some commentary. I'm continuing to update the site with new material. So these that you can see all of these pages, these are going to be some of our lecture topics. And the way that we're going to go about this course is each lecture is going to be its own topic, right? So I know in the past, if you've studied this text or similar text with other teachers, what they'll generally do is they'll just start from the beginning and just read, right? And then give their commentary. So that's the sort of the traditional method of teaching in Islamic studies. You open up the book and then you just start reading, right? But I think since we have limited amount of time and also because we're using digital tools, it's important for us to simplify things and present things in sort of the way that we're used to. So each lecture is going to be its own topic. So the topic for today is number one, what is this text about? Who is it written by? And then number two, the prerequisites of just doing theology. Okay? So the prerequisites of studying this. Okay? So we're going to talk about first Imam Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi. Okay? So that's the first thing we're going to talk about. So Imam Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi is a very famous name in Islamic history. And the reason is because he is one of the earliest scholars. So he lived, if you know about the name Abu Mansur al-Maturidi, he lived sort of the same amount of time at the same time as Abu Mansur al-Maturidi, Alam al-Huda we call him. So and Imam al-Tahawi was a very famous scholar of the Hanafi school, and the Hanafi school is a school of legal of law, right? So law is different than creed. Okay, so you can have differences in law, but even in the fundamentals, right? So this is why we have madahib, the different legal schools. And in creed, you can't have differences in fundamentals. If you have differences in fundamentals in creed, what happens? Anyone?
You're not a Muslim?
You're not a Muslim, right? So like if you believe two gods and then we believe in Tawheed, I mean, it's not like, oh, we can have a difference of opinion. You're not a Muslim, right? So Imam Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi was a very famous scholar of the Hanafi school, okay? And his main contribution was to defend the Hanafi school from the standpoint of hadith, okay? So because the Hanafis, they were accused at the time by the Shafi school that, oh, you guys don't, you guys sort of ignore Sahih Hadith and you guys just go with what your Imam say and you guys aren't being academic, whatever it may be. So Imam Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi was the first one to really comprehensively defend the Hanafi school from the standpoint of hadith. And actually his story is quite funny. Imam Ja'far al-Tahawi was the nephew of Imam al-Muzani. Okay? So Imam al-Muzani was the direct student of Imam al-Shafi'i. Okay, so this is a really ironic thing. And some people ask, why did Imam Jafar al-Tahawi become a Hanafi? He should have been Shafi'i. And some people say that he had beef with his uncle, okay? Okay? Or one time, Imam Jafar al-Tahawi, he was having some trouble with something, and his uncle got mad at him and said, you'll never become a faqih, right? You'll never become a great jurist. So because of this, apparently, he said, okay, I'm not going to join the Shafi school. I'm going to turn against my uncle and join the Hanafi school, right? But that I mean that's a weak story. But what seems to be a more correct story is that Imam al-Muzani, who's a student of Imam Shafi, right? Imam Jafar al-Tahawi tells us that whenever my uncle would get a very difficult question, he would consult the books of Muhammad al-Shaybani, right? He would secretly go inside his house. He'd open up the books of Muhammad Shaybani, rahimahullah, and then he'd give the answer. So, so that's what made him switch to the Hanafi school. He's like, obviously, the Hanafi school is much more rigorous, right? So, anyone know who Muhammad Shaybani is? Muhammad Shaybani?
He was a student of Imam Abu Hanifa, right?
Abu Hanifa, yeah, exactly. And he was also the teacher of Imam Shafi, right? He was the teacher of Imam Shafi. And they had some very famous debates. Uh, so yeah, so all of these these imams, they're all connected, right? So anyway, whatever the case, Imam al-Tahawi switches to the Hanafi madhab, okay? And he also has a strong training in hadith, in muhaddith, and so he's a muhaddith, okay? So, and in his Aqeeda, so because he's a very, very early person, okay? He's almost very close to the Salaf, okay? So, and this is why you can see why his Aqeeda is so important, because this is a clear text that we have from very close to the time of the Salaf that details Islamic creed. Okay? And even our Salafi brothers, okay, and we'll get into what these names mean and stuff, but we won't get too much detailed into it. They accept this, right? They accept the creed of Imam al-Tahawi. Every Sunni Muslim should accept this creed, right? Um, and the second thing I want to say, yeah, so he's a muhaddith, right? So in that early period, right, the creeds, the statements of Islamic belief were very simple. Okay? They were very simple, number one, and number two, they wanted to differentiate between who's a Sunni and who's not a Sunni, who has proper belief and who doesn't have proper belief. Okay? And this is why certain issues you'll find in Aqidah Tahawiyah that it'll puzzle you. It's like wiping over the socks. We believe that wiping over the socks is permissible. And you're wondering like, well, what does that have to do with belief? Okay? So the point of it is to differentiate Sunnis from non-Sunnis. That's what it has to do with belief, right? Not that, if you don't believe in wiping over the socks, then you leave Islam. That's not the case, right? So this Aqidah, this statement of Aqidah has a lot of usul in it, things that you can't disagree on. Every Muslim has to agree with these things. But they also has a lot of furu, a lot of branches, a lot of details of Aqidah, okay? Which certain scholars have debated on the specifics, okay? So, but this is a very, very important text because it's so early. It's very, very early by Imam al-Tahawi. And this is a text also, which is very important. This is a text that leaves room for um, very varied interpretation. Okay, so if you look online today, right, for commentaries on Tahawiyah, you will see that the commentaries on Tahawiyah in English are from a certain group. Okay, they're written by our Salafi brothers, and you ask yourself why. And the reason is because the Tahawiyah was not a teaching text for a long time in the Muslim world because it's not that detailed. It's as simple as that, right? I mean, there are much more detailed works out there, right? So it wasn't really used as a teaching text. And then once we start reading it, you'll notice it's not that organized. Okay? So Imam al-Tahawi, he goes on from topic to topic, but he doesn't, put things under headings or whatever it may be, right? Like in a way that you'll see in later works. Okay, so when you want to teach a text, you have to make sure that it's organized, it's teacher friendly and this and that. But in this case, this text is not because remember, it's a very early text, and Imam al-Tahawi probably wrote it as notes. Okay. So, and these early scholars, that's what they would do. They wouldn't like write a book, uh, like for mass consumption, if you understand what I mean. What they're usually doing is they're writing a book for notes or to help a student. Like you'll see in a lot of classical Islamic books, it starts off with, my students came to me and asked me, could you put these things into an organized style so it'll be made easy for us? So these books are never meant to replace the teacher, right? So these books were always meant as notes in the early period. It's only like later scholars that sort of write books independently so that, um, you can use them as teaching texts and to learn from them, right? So, which is why you always need a teacher to clarify these things. Okay, so any questions about who Imam al-Tahawi is and why he's so significant? So he's significant for defending the Hanafi school with through the Hadith. He's one of the earliest, most clearest expressions of Sunni creed that everyone accepts, right? And the last thing I forgot to mention is he wrote one of the most brilliant works on Hadith in the Islamic tradition, which is Sharh Mushkil al-Athar, which is resolving the contradictions between Hadith. Okay? So and then we'll discuss Hadith in a separate lecture, right? How can we trust the companions? And one of the issues with studying the hadith is that, remember, hadiths are sometimes eyewitness or sort of personal testimonies, right? And as you know, personal testimonies, they almost all the time they conflict because people have different perspectives or they might have missed certain information. So you might have two hadiths or two or more hadiths that have like sometimes conflicting information. And so you have to determine which one came before, which one came after. Um, uh, did this companion forget something, right? Or did the Prophet ﷺ change his mind on a certain thing? So all of these different things, what the how he gathers all of these types of hadiths and he tries to resolve the issues, right? So this is actually that book is still used today by scholars worldwide, and it's one of the most brilliant works in Islamic history. So that's Imam Jafar al-Tahawi. He was born in Egypt, Taha, Egypt, um, and this is his book. So inshallah, let's start with the main part of our lecture. So any questions so far? Good? Thumbs up? Cool. Okay, so question is, what is Aqeeda? That's the first thing, right? What is Aqeeda? You guys are taking an Aqeeda class. Aqeeda comes from the word aqada, which is to tie something up, right? To tie a rope, tie a camel, whatever it may be. And the reason it's called Aqeeda is because this science ties you, okay? It ties you to the faith. And also, it ties every other science of the faith, okay? Anything that you learn, tasawwuf, fiqh, hadith, tafsir, whatever it is, like you can learn anything about Islam, Islamic history. All of that, if Aqeeda is not sound, all of that just falls. It's like a stack of cards. Okay? Because Aqeeda, Islamic Aqeeda is sound, all of these things have meaning. Okay? So for example, the command in the Quran or Muslim practice is to pray 5 times a day, right? So now, why are we praying 5 times a day? Okay, so we can get into the details of the obligations, the fara'id, the wajibat, the sunnahs, the all these details, and we can get into the hadiths. But if I ask you the question, why are we praying 5 times a day? And what would be the answer? Just give me a simple answer. We don't need to get too complicated.
We do what our prophet instructed us to do.
Okay, and now we can ask a further question. Why, now the further question is, why do we believe this person as a prophet? Right? So this is the foundational question. Yes or no? It's the foundational question. So that's part of Aqeedah. You see? You can ask a further question. If you say um, that God ordered us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to pray 5 times a day. Okay. Why do we believe that Allah exists? Now that's part of Aqeedah. You see? So all of the questions of Islam, they boil down, the foundation is Aqeedah. And this is why understanding Aqeedah properly, it ties you down. Okay? It gives meaning to everything else. So some people, they might say like Aqeedah is sort of, it's not a practical science, it's not they might say like it's too much theory. And yes, there are parts of Aqeedah, we'll get into it, that might not be as practical, but Aqeedah is the most practical science out of all of the Islamic sciences, right? And think about it. How many times in your life do you have to have tawakkul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? It's like every day. True or false, right? How many times do you have to trust Allah? Every day. How many times do you have to believe that the Prophet ﷺ speaks the truth? And at any time that you hear a hadith, I mean, this is your belief, right? So all throughout your life, I mean, you're using the conclusions of the science of Aqeedah. So Aqeedah is actually the most practical science. I mean, without it, nothing else has any meaning. Like even when you're praying 5 times a day, Aqeedah is this first and center thing that is in your mind. I mean, who are you praying to? You're praying to Allah, right? And why do you believe Allah is great? Again, we study these things in Aqeedah. So now there are two ways of studying this science, okay? The first is what I said before when we started the class, that we can just literally go through, right? We could just go through the text and we say, regarding the oneness of Allah, we believe with Allah's help, Allah is one, without any partner, there's nothing like him, nothing can overwhelm him. And we just go on this list, right? And we say, you just have to believe this. So that's the method called at-talaqqi. Okay, it's transmitted. So these beliefs are transmitted to us, and we just believe them. Okay? The second way that we can study Aqeedah is as a science itself. Okay? And any type of science that you study, it has to have principles, it has to have reasoning, it has to have like an organization, right? You have to be able to defend your conclusions. So this, when we employ our aql, when we employ our rationality with Aqeedah, then it becomes a science we call ilm al-kalam. Okay, ilm al-kalam. And some of you might have heard this name, ilm al-kalam, before, or kalam, and you might freak out like, oh, this is bid'ah, this is this, this is that. And yes, a form of ilm al-kalam is bid'ah, okay, and it is wrong, okay? And this was the form that Sunnism came to refute. Okay, and this is the irony that some people don't understand, that the Sunni scholars came to refute, they started employing reason and logic in the science of Aqeedah to refute the people that used ilm al-kalam in a wrong way. Yeah, Andre, you have a question?
Yes. Can you translate what ilm al kalam means? I know ilm is knowledge.
Yeah, the
Is
science
kalam,
of kalam. So
which is okay,
they kalam means speech, right?
speech.
Kalam means speech, but they call the science ilm al-kalam, the science of speech, but it doesn't really literally mean that, right? It means like they called it speech because, you would argue back and forth with people, right? So there'd be a lot of speech. Okay, so that's one of the reasons that they give, right?
Is it like debate?
Yeah, debate.
Okay.
Yeah. If you want to know the technical term, it's scholastic theology, right? Or dialectic theology. That's in al-kalam. So the second part of this course, the second module, that's what it'll be dedicated towards. So we're going to study Sunni ilm al-kalam from the Ashari school. Okay, if you ever heard these schools, the name of these schools, Ashari, Maturidi, Athari, right? This is what it's about. It's a disagreement over the second part of it. Okay? I mean, unless you're Muslim, no one's going to disagree with at-talaqqi from the transmitted beliefs. I mean, no one if you disagree that has he's all powerful, I mean, you're not Muslim, right? So the transmitted Aqeeda that we have as Muslims, as Sunni Muslims, is the same Aqeeda of the Prophet ﷺ and the companions. Okay? And no Ashari, Maturidi, Athari, whoever, Salafi, Goofy, Sufi, whatever it is, right? No one's going to disagree with this. Unless, they have some serious problems in their Aqeeda. The disagreement is over what? Is how to teach it as a science. How do we approach it, right? And there's a group of people, some of our brothers from As-Salafiyya, that which is a group of the Muslims, that they say we should not employ the aql in understanding Aqidah. Okay? But they still do, right? You can't get away from it. So this is the Athari madhab. Okay, this is the Athari way of thinking that in the we should only study Aqidah in a transmitted way. That's it. Okay, for you just read the Quran and the Hadith, and then you just believe in it. Okay, we're not going to get into the details of it, and this is a very, very good way of thinking, right? But sometimes it becomes a sometimes we'll get into the issues with this later on, right? And there's a second group, the majority of Muslims, of Muslim scholars throughout history, from the Asha'ira and the Maturidiyya. The Maturidis are the Hanafis, right? The Hanafis. So Imam Tahawi is not a Maturidi. And the reason I say he's not a Maturidi is because he lived at the exact same time as Abu Mansur al-Maturidi. Okay? So he wouldn't be able to be a follower of Imam Maturidi, right? So, but that's the Hanafi tradition that we have. But so there's a disagreement, right, over how to teach Aqeedah and how do we defend the conclusions of Aqeedah. No one disagrees that Allah is one. No one disagrees that Allah has attributes. Okay? No one disagrees that Allah is living or that Allah sent the prophets or the Quran is the speech of Allah. All these different things. So no Muslim would disagree with these things. The disagreement of it is with al-ilm, with using it as a science. Okay? But this course, we're going to study it from the perspective of a science because we live in 2025. And if I just told you guys, please believe all these things, and we could just call it a day, okay, then we would have no problems in the Muslim world. I mean, all of our actions spring from our beliefs. And it's clear that Muslims their beliefs are weak. Even myself, even I'm sure for many of you, but even myself, people who grew up in the West, who've spent like, 8 hours a day for like 14, 15 years, 16 years in an educational system that's the complete opposite of your belief, right? So, and now I come here and tell you, just believe these things, okay? So, I mean, it just doesn't sound reasonable, right? And the Prophet ﷺ never asked that of his companions either. So if you look in the Quran is constantly asking us to use our aql, to employ our aql. And it's constantly asking us to reflect on creation, right? And it's constantly arguing with the kuffar. It's constantly making their arguments look weak. Okay? So if our argumentation and sort of doing theology, like trying to get to the best argument to prove your position, if this is all haram, then why is the Quran doing it? Right? And the Prophet would do this too. So the Prophet never asked people just to have blind faith. I mean, sometimes the argument of the Prophet was just himself. Like, didn't you see me for 40 years? You think I'm lying now? This is the argument itself, right? Because if you saw someone random, like let's say your neighbor, he has conspiracy theories or whatever, and you see him like, building things in his backyard, unemployed, and then one day he comes knocking on your door and says, "I'm a prophet sent by God." What would you say? Let's say Islam was never revealed. Okay? Na'udhu but let's say that there was no Islam in the world, and this happened to you. What would you say?
You wouldn't believe it.
Of course not. Completely irrational, right? We have a sense that a prophet of God, even if you don't believe in a prophet, right? Even if you don't believe in any of these things, a prophet of God should be like something, okay? They should remember that the Meccans, they said, why didn't Allah send an angel? Okay? I mean, if you're going to be a prophet of God, it should be some angelic type of crazy thing, right? But so what is the argument of the process then? The argument of the process then is you've seen me for 40 years. You call me Sadiq al-Amin, right? I mean, you were going to make me the leader of your people. And then now I come to you with this message, like, do you think I'm lying? You see, that's a very powerful argument. It's not the same thing as, your neighbor, crazy neighbor, he just comes to you knocking on your door one day and says, I'm a prophet of God. Okay? So even there's an argument. So every position of our faith, we have good reasons to believe it. It's not simply because, oh, he told us so. Okay? We believe he told us so because we accept him as a prophet. So that's what we're going to study it as a science. Now, the tenets of faith, the details of faith, okay, the major ideas, God exists, the process of him is a prophet. We cement these with our reason, okay? But I want to make something clear. We don't get the details of our faith from reason, okay? We don't get the details of our faith from reason. What do I mean by this? Can you tell me, using pure reason, the delights of Jannah? Yes or no?
No.
No.
So the Christians thought they could. So there's a very famous Christian, I forget his name, but he said the delights of Jannah, they have to be perfectly geometrical and rational. They have to be in the realm of forms. So in Jannah, everyone's going to be a perfect circle. Every single human being is going to be a perfect circle. All right? And they're going to exist in a geometric reality. So this is his aql, right? So what about for us? For us, the pleasures of Jannah, they're bodily, they're sensory, okay? And there's some Christians that they just can't accept this. It's like this is illogical. How can, your soul is an immaterial thing and in heaven everyone's going to be immaterial, they're going to be floating in clouds. I mean, who told you that? I mean, does that say that in the Bible? No. It doesn't say that in the Quran. So the details of Aqeeda, they come from naql, they come from revelation. Okay? First you accept the revelation. First you prove that okay, this is actually revelation. And then the details of it, they come from revelation. For example, um uh uh children of disbelievers, okay? They die before they're mature. What is the dominant opinion that happens to them?
They go to heaven, right?
They go to heaven. Can you get this from the Aql?
Maybe. Children are
Maybe, big maybe, big maybe. Because you would have to establish Allah has in as part of Allah's justice, right? First of all, you have to establish that children are not responsible, right? This is not like an easy topic to establish. You might say, well, it's obvious children are not yes, because we're living in Abrahamic Islamic worldview. That's why. Okay? But if you lived in the Roman world, right, or the Greek world, guess what? It's a very, very different type of world. Very different type of world. Okay? So we take a lot of things for granted. So we can't, it's not very clear how we could establish that with the Aql, but Revelation tells us yes, we won't punish anyone except that we send them a messenger, right? So Allah says that in the Quran. So you get the point, right? So the details of Aqeeda, they come from naql, they come from transmission, they come from khabar, testimony, transmission. So some of the other Islamic groups, they will accuse Sunnis. They'll say, look, um, you guys are all getting your Aqeeda from Aql. You guys are getting it from Sheikh Aristotle, okay, or Plato or somebody. That's not true. It's not true at all. Okay, the details of Aqeeda, they come from and the Hadith. Okay. So, and then we'll talk about khabar and testimony later. So now let's talk a little bit about Aql, because this is a very important topic. And the explanation of Aql, of rationality, that I'm going to give you is my own. Okay, it's what I got from Dr. Taha Abdul Rahman, who's a very famous contemporary Moroccan philosopher, a huge philosopher in the Arab world, right? Muslim philosopher, and Said Nursi and other people, right? This is not the definition of aql that the mutakallimun, the scholars of kalam in Sunni theology use. Okay, I just want to make that clear. In this course, the Aqeeda Tahawiyya, we're gonna add some spice to make it interesting. In the second module, we're gonna put on Ash'ari hats and we're gonna study an Ash'ari text. Okay, you guys okay with that? Good. Thumbs up. All right. And do you think if we disagree on the definition of aql that it's a difference that takes us out of Islam? What do you guys think? Any opinions?
No.
Yeah, obviously not. Right? So these are minor disagreements, but I think they're very interesting because they change your whole perspective on a lot of things. Okay? Um, so aql comes from the Arabic word uh, like a rope used to bind a camel. Okay. Even if you go to the Emirates today, they have the black thing that they wear on their what do you call the shmagh or something? I forget what it's called, right? But they wear that black thing there to keep the robe on their head, right? That's called an iqal, okay? So because it keeps it on their head. So aql is something that binds you, okay? It's used to bind the camel. And we're getting this from the way that the Arabs understood the meaning of aql, okay? And even the classical scholars, they had this understanding of aql. So uh, we say here that it's the faculty that when a human being uses it, he acts ethically aligned with virtues. So this is the ethical understanding. When an Arab calls another Arab that he's an aqil, he's a person who's aqil, okay? As opposed to he's a jahil. So now, some of you have already heard these words in being used among Muslims, right? So when I say he's a person who's very aqil, okay? So he has a lot of aqil. Well, how would you describe this person? Anyone?
Smart or knowledgeable?
Knowledgeable, yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, so we still have that modern understanding, right? But let's say this person's a jahil. This person's a jahil. How would you describe it?
A non-believer.
No, no, jahil just means like ignorant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but when you use the word jahil, this person's a jahil, you're talking about his character, not so much his knowledge, right? Because I think all of us in this room here were ignorant of a lot of things, right? But when someone gives off a really bad vibe, or he's saying things without thinking, or he's acting in a inappropriate way, this guy's a jahil, right? So this is the original Arabic understanding. A person who's aqil is able to control himself. He has command over his nafs and he does good things. Okay? So he's a very virtuous person. So the Arabs would call this person aqil. Okay? And the opposite is true. If a person was very clever, okay, but he wasn't ethical, they would call this person like basically like slimy, okay? Slimy, like a person, like a fox, okay? They wouldn't call him aqil, you see? Because he has the smarts, but he acts unethically. So aqil is actually related to ethics. It's not related to how many math equations you can do. All right. So this is the conclusion of Dr. Taha Abdul Rahman and a lot of famous scholars of the past as well, that aql
makes you ethical. And if you lose ethics, you are jahil. So you could be the smartest person in the world, but if you're using your equations to create, create like advanced types of bombs and logistics to kill children in Gaza, you're a jahil. You're not aql. Okay, you could have the biggest IQ in the world, but you're complete jahil because you lack any type of ethics. And traditional Arab, in the 7th century during the Prophet's time, they would call you a jahil. This guy is a complete jahil, right? So, what is the faculty of aql? What does it actually do? So, one of the faculties, okay, so how does aql make you ethical? Okay, how does it make you ethical? It has a faculty. Faculty is like a power, right? Your hand has the power to grab something, right? So one of the faculties of the aql is it can abstract things. Okay, abstract. So let me give you an example. We're gonna do this in later on in the course, right? So this is a bottle, right? This is a bottle type of thing. This is a bottle type of thing. This is the water bottle. This is a duster, electronic duster. Okay. So now these are two completely different things. Yes or no? I'm using them for two completely different purposes.
Yeah.
You guys agree?
Yep.
But I abstract from this that both of these are bottles or canisters. Let's say canisters. Both of these are canisters. So they share something in common, right? So I abstracted what they share in common from, there are two things in front of me, and I abstracted what they share in common. So this is the faculty of what? Of Dako. You see? So it's able to abstract things and make abstractions. And then what does it do? It also is able to perform operations. Okay, so I have this abstraction, this bottle. Okay, now I can have another abstraction, and I can mix and match them. What if I made, so I have, the two canisters. One of them holds water, one of them holds gas. What if I make a canister that has M&Ms inside of it? You see, so where am I doing this? I'm not doing this in the real world. I'm doing it in my head, where I'm taking concepts and mixing and merging them and performing operations on them. Okay. And whenever I do this, I try to avoid any contradictions, right? So these are the two faculties of al-aql. The first is you can abstract things. The second is that you can perform operations in order to avoid contradictions. You guys understand? So now we use both of these. We don't stop there. Okay. So in the Western definition of aql, you just stop there. Okay. You do operations and you abstract. Okay. So now what's the problem with this? The problem with this is that, okay, you abstract and you perform operations. Then what? Right? Then what? There's no other conclusion. Okay. There's no component of the Western idea of aql that is ethical. Okay, for example, if I see a starving child, okay, just give you an example, and I see a bucket of water. Okay, I know there's a bucket of water a mile away, and then here's a starving child. Right? These are two concepts that come into my mind. Now, the aql, according to the Arabic understanding, it's supposed to move me with my understanding of ethics and values. That okay, that bucket of water should go to this child. I should help this child. Okay? So this is the component where the ethical component comes in. You see, I have the information in my head. Now I ought to do something. But in the Western definition of aql, where do we stop at? There's a child, there's a bucket of water or food. So we just stop there. There's no conclusion from that. You guys understand? Anyone confused by this so far? So we have concepts in our head, we have operations, we have math, whatever it is. But if it does not lead us to some ethical action, then you're not behaving in an aql way. You're not behaving in a rational way. So to be rational is to be ethical. Okay? This is the conclusion that we have from the Quran. If you look in the Quran, everywhere where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the verb aql to think, it's always an action. Okay? It's always an action. It's never something that is like abstract. Okay? أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. And why does Allah ask you to think? To believe in Allah. Okay, so there's an action right there. You see? So aql, thinking, abstraction, all of these mental type of things, these abstract things, it has to lead to some ethical action, or else we don't say that that's aql. If it doesn't lead to ethical action, it in fact leads to the opposite, to evil, which in many cases it does, right? There are brilliant people who, with their thinking, they purposely do evil, and we call that person jahil. Okay, that person is ignorant. That person is jahil. Okay, so now let's get into. We're almost done. How much time do we have? Oh, we're reaching time. Now we get into what we call Islamic epistemology. Okay. And epistemology is just a fancy word of saying, how do you know what you know? Okay. How do you know what you know? And let me ask you, well, actually, let me hide the slide. How do you know what you know? So anyone want to answer? How do you guys know the information that you know? Like, how do you know that your father is so-and-so, or I don't know, like you live in New Jersey, you're 6 feet tall. Like, how do you know these things?
Is it by is this empirical reasoning? Like you're interacting with the world and like for example the height thing, like you measure yourself and
Yeah. Yeah. So one of them is empirical reasoning, just your senses. Okay. What about something like the fact that you're Bengali, you're from Bangladesh? So I'm from Bangladesh. Uh, so for example, my wife, she's from Bangladesh. She's never been to Bangladesh, right? Ever since she came here, she's never been back. So my question is, how does she know she's Bengali? I mean, how do you know China exists? Anyone?
Well,
is
basically what we were told.
Yeah, what you were told, right? So there's empirical senses, right? And then there's what you were told, khabar, testimony, okay? And there's also other things too. There's, for example, like, how do I know that I'm talking to human beings on the other side of the screen? Like, how do I know that? Even if I'm talking face to face with you, how do you know that? How do I know that you have a soul and you're sort of the same as me? And there's no empirical reasoning that leads me to that, right? You guys get when where I'm going?
yes.
So epistemology is the science of trying to understand how do we know the things that we know. Okay? For example, how do you know that 2 plus 2 equals 4? I mean, is it just a rule that you learned in math? Or is it true like outside of math too? I mean, you have 2 apples plus 2 apples, it's 4 apples, right? So let's look at how Islam looks at um, epistemology, how we know the things that we know. Okay? So, at the basis of how we know the things that we know, the first thing that we notice is that we have senses. Okay? And senses, the 5 senses, you can, I mean, there are more senses than 5, right? But the 5 are like the traditional, because you have a sense of balance, you have all these other things. But the 5 are the most traditional, right? You have the sight, you have smell, you have taste, right? You have touch, you have hearing. Okay, so these are 5 senses, and then you have what's called the internal senses too, right? So you have a sense of like if you're hungry, if you're thirsty, um, uh, all types of things, right? So the first thing that you are met with if you exist is that you have senses, and senses give you some information. Like touch feels a certain way, sight feels a certain way, you know, smell feels a certain way, and on and on. Okay. So the first way that we notice certain things is through the senses. Now, here's a question. Can we trust the senses? Can we generally, let's say, can we generally trust the senses?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this would be the common sense answer to it, right? But what if someone says like, there's so many people that some of them are blind, some of them can't smell, like some of them like they're colorblind, so we shouldn't trust any of the senses. So what would you say to that?
You would look for statistics and stats that kind of justify why.
But that's a bit of a circular argument because to look at the statistics, you need your senses, right? So
Mhm.
if the senses are faulty, right, then you can't trust anything that you input at all. You can't do any studies. So this is a philosophical argument now, right? So here's what how Imam Al-Qahtazani, one of the great Muslim theologians, he answers this, right? That the defects in the senses, they're not intrinsic to the senses themselves. So like for example, sight. Like I see this, right? I see this. Now, unless something is blocking my sight, then I wouldn't see it. Okay? So it's not because of my sight that, you know, I shouldn't trust my sight. Like sight works. Anyone who has proper sight, it works. The reason that sometimes it might not work is because of something external. You guys understand? Because I might have something covering my eyes. I might have dust in my eyes. My receptors in my eyes might be messed up. So I see something different. But just because something external damaged my senses doesn't mean we should not trust proper senses. You guys understand? So, like for example, like a wrench. A wrench can open screws, right? Or sorry, a screwdriver can open screws. So, generally speaking, this is true. You have a screwdriver, you have a screw, you can open it. Simple. Now, if someone comes and like smashes the screwdriver, and you say it doesn't work, and then you say, "Oh, we can't use screwdrivers anymore. Screwdrivers are, they're useless." Is this a logical argument?
No.
No, exactly. So, generally speaking, we can trust our senses, right? Now, the second, like, very important way that we gain knowledge, okay, is through khabar, testimony. And a lot of people say that testimony is unreliable, but actually, right? Actually, almost every single thing that you know comes from testimony. This is the irony of it, okay? The scientific, you guys learned in school, like we should only trust the scientific method and this and that. And I mean, how many of you here did an experiment to calculate that the Earth is round? How many of you? Please raise your hand. Anyone did that? How do you know that the Earth is round? Oh, Brother Omar did. So you tell me.
I think I don't remember the actual the test that we did, but I remember doing it in one of the classes. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Mashallah. Okay, never mind. I thought no one would do that, but I guess we have a scientist among us, right? Um, so yeah, but those of you who didn't do it, I mean, why do you guys believe that the Earth is round?
That's what we were taught.
That's what you were taught. Exactly. Now, where were you taught it? It's from a book, right? One source, one testimony, right? You don't know who wrote the book. Yeah, exactly. You don't know who wrote the book. You don't know who published it. I mean, you guys were probably like, in your, teenage years. So why do you trust this information? I mean, it's ajib, it's strange that they tell you in school that nothing is, proper or true unless you test, unless you use the scientific method, unless you use your senses, you use your critical thinking. And then they teach you all of this information from a book, a singular source. And they say you can't accept testimony. It's a weak type of evidence.
Mhm.
Most of the things that we know are from testimony. So actually, testimony is a very strong type of evidence. Okay? And actually, most of the things that you know, they're not from strong testimony. And this is the ironic part of it. Okay? Like the Earth, the moon landing. By the way, please, I'm not denying the moon landing. Okay? I just want to make that clear. Okay? Just want to make that clear. Yes, America did land on the moon. I do believe that. but I can't prove it to you. I mean, how can I prove it to you? Can I prove it to you through the senses? No, you didn't see it. You saw, okay, a recording. I mean, they could have shot that recording in a studio. You don't know. So the point is that the testimony that we trust is very weak compared to the testimony used by Islamic scholars to say that the Quran has been preserved. Compared to the testimony we trust, the testimony of the Quran being preserved is like 100,000 leagues a difference. Okay? So you guys learned that the earth is round from one textbook. We know that the Quran has been preserved in its wording, right? Exact wording from the 7th century, from millions and millions across every single generation of human history, from the time of the Prophet. So tell me, which testimony is more weightier, right? And then they will tell you, oh, you can't trust that. They're religious people. You can't trust that. I mean, this is crazy, right? So this is why the Muslim scholars, they said that al-khabar as-sadiq, okay? The truthful khabar, the truthful testimony, it gives yaqeen. It gives certain knowledge. Not just like, not just speculative knowledge, like, the earth is round, okay? But certain knowledge. So if someone is 100% truthful and they give you a testimony, you know that they're truthful 100%, and they give you a testimony, it's certain knowledge. And the second way that the certain knowledge can come about is if you have so many people testifying to the same exact thing, okay, that it's impossible that they could have colluded to make a lie. Okay, so for example, we have today in the Quran, somebody from Morocco will be reciting, and then somebody from Russia who probably studied Welsh or one of the recitations, they'll be praying behind them. And the person from Morocco makes a mistake, the person from Russia corrects this person. This has been the case for all of Islamic history. So many people have memorized the Quran, so many people have transmitted the Quran, that it's impossible to think that all those people collaborated and made a conspiracy. Okay, so it's certain knowledge that the Quran has been preserved. You guys understood the argument? You guys good?
Yep.
Okay. So now, khabar as-sadiq. Yeah, anyone? Someone has a question?
I was going to say, this is this like what's called like the mass transmission or what?
Yes, this is the mutawatir report, right? But we'll get into the terminology, the second module, right? We won't bring in all this terminology for now. Okay, so now how do we sort out testimony in the senses? Okay, because this is input data. This is input data, right? This is just data coming in. You can feed testimony and sense perception into a computer as well. I mean, it doesn't mean the computer has knowledge. It doesn't mean the computer knows truth, right? The AI, now AI is doing that stuff too. This is why we have the aql. Remember what we said about the aql. The aql takes particular things, right? These two bottles here, or whatever, however many bottles, and it abstracts. Okay, it tries to find the unifying concept. And then it performs operations, addition, subtraction, right? The rules of logic, okay? Arguments. If this is true, then this is true. These two things can't be true at the same time. This is what aql does, okay? At a very, very basic level. So when you have all this data that's coming in, the aql can sort between them. Okay, so this is a third source of knowledge, and now the fourth source of knowledge that we believe is revelation. Revelation. Aql cannot understand the complete reality of existence, and the reason for this is because aql is part of existence. It's part of it. Okay, so for example, trying to give you an example. Let's say a fish, okay? A fish. A fish that is 1,000 meters, not 1,000 meters, like 1,000 feet under the sea, okay? Uh, does it understand like water? Does it understand that it's swimming in water? What do you guys think?
Yes.
No, it doesn't.
Just
I mean,
kidding.
for you guys, like, do you guys understand that you're actually swimming in air? No, right? Because this is so like you're actually swimming in empty space, according to the scientists. Like there is actual space here. Okay, so now if I gained enough weight, okay, if I gained enough weight, like I'm sitting in the seat here, if I gained enough weight and my weight increased to the point of the sun, okay, that's how much like weight I gained. I would create a black hole right here, okay, and I would take the entire Earth with me. It would rip through space and take the entire Earth with me. I mean, this is ajib. Like, I don't see any space. Where is space? I don't feel it. So I can't understand it because I'm living inside of it, right? In the same way, Akal is part of existence. Akal cannot comprehend all of existence, okay? Because you need to have sensed all of existence in order to comprehend it, which is impossible, okay? So, and this is why we have wahi, we have revelation. So, revelation and akal, sound reason and revelation, can never contradict. Why can they never contradict? Is it just some rule that Muslims have made up? No, no, not necessarily. The reason is because the one who sends revelation to us, which is Allah, the creator, he's the one who created your akal. Right? So the one who's sending you instructions or facts or information about things that you don't know is the same one who made your akal. So there's no possibility that this and this can contradict. You guys understand? Because the aql is meant to understand wahi, and it's meant to understand everything else. So the same person, not the person, the same being who created your aql is the one who created revelation, who's giving you revelation. So they can never contradict. So sound reason can never contradict sound revelation from God, as He is the creator of both. And this is why we reject the Trinity. We reject the divinity of Christ, peace be upon him. And you will notice one of the most famous Christian theologians, St. Thomas Aquinas, I mean, they call him saint. I'm not saying he's a saint. He said that we accept the reincarnation, we accept it based on faith. It is illogical. Okay? And the Trinity, it is illogical. We accept it on faith. Okay, we accept it from revelation. And let me ask you this. If it was true, if you saw the Trinity in Revelation, would you accept it? If you saw, like, oh, okay, God became man, and God is actually three gods in one God, would you accept this? Like, as a type of neutral person? And the answer to it is we wouldn't, right? We wouldn't, because it's unreasonable. Okay, it's illogical. So revelation cannot ever contradict sound reason. Okay, you guys understand? And then we have St. Augustine, who says, I accept the Trinity because it's illogical, right? Because only God could have commanded me to believe something so illogical. So, subhanAllah. So make of that what you will. Okay, so let's look at how to actually use the aql, okay? So we're going to talk about two terms. How much time do we have? Oh, we're over time. Are you guys cool going 5 more minutes?
Sure.
Okay. So what does the aql do? The aql, first thing that it does, it understands essences and attributes. Okay. So let's look at what essences are. So you tell me on the screen what you see. So the first one, like what's the thing that you see?
Very.
A fairy. I mean, I didn't tell you that it's a fairy. So how did you know it's a fairy?
Uh, just just kind of know what a fairy looks like and the F start.
Good, good, good. Yeah. So you sort of have a general idea, a general concept of what a fairy looks like, right? So, and then you immediately get that it's a fairy. What about the second one?
Cat.
Cat. Good. I mean, it could have been a leopard or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess it's a type of cat, right? So never mind. Yeah, you'd be right. What about the third one?
Trees.
Good. So you see here what we did. How many types of trees are there? I mean, there's so many varieties of trees. But how did you know that this is tree? You didn't see like the details of the leaves and all of those things. How did you know it's a tree? Right? You have a general understanding of what a tree looks like,
Mm-hmm.
a general concept. You have a general concept of what a cat is. You have a general concept of what a fairy is. This is what we call an essence. Okay? An essence is that thing that makes whatever you're looking at, whatever you're talking about, what it is. Okay? So if you change that thing, it becomes something else. All right? If you change the essence of a thing, it becomes something completely different. So this is what's called a that essence. Okay? So this is like the most essential qualities of a thing, of an entity. Okay? Now let's look at the second part. What are attributes? So for the fairy, I put wings. So do you think wings are an essential part of a fairy? Like, are they part of the essence of a fairy?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, right? Not necessarily, because I know Tinkerbell has wings, right? But
Right.
I mean, what if her wings are folded, right? Or what if you have male fairies sometimes? I mean, Disney shows and things like this. And we still understand that they're fairies. Okay? So wings are just attributes of a fairy. They're not essential to them. So imagine a fairy changes shape and becomes like a normal human being, looks like a normal human being. We'd still call them a fairy because if you really think about it, the essence of a fairy is like a type of mystical, I don't really know how to define a fairy, right? But type of mystical creature with certain powers to do something, right? I think they have certain powers in mythology and things like that. So if we look at the cat, a cat has ears, right? A cat has ears. Now, are ears essential for a cat?
No.
You might think yes, but actually no, because for example, there's a movie where they have like the cat mobile. Okay, it's like a Miyazaki film. So let me find it for you. There you go. Here it is. Right? I mean, this is clearly not a cat, like the one we just. Can you guys see this on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, this is clearly not a cat like the one we just saw on the slide, right? But we still call it the cat bus. Okay, because there are certain features that our minds sort of gravitate towards, like, oh yeah, this is sort of a cat. It's basically a cat. So these are extra features: ears, wings. Okay, these are attributes of a cat, attributes of a fairy. They're not the essence of a fairy. Same thing with trees, right? So there are certain trees that don't have the same type of leaf. Okay, they have different, all sorts of variations of leaves. So those are attributes of a tree. Okay, attributes of a tree. You could probably say that a trunk would be like an essential part of a tree, right? That would be like an essential part. Maybe you could say like just having leaves would be essential part, but I think some trees don't have leaves. Um,
Yeah. Pine
I
trees are
think,
just pine needles. I don't think they have.
yeah, yeah. There you go. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. So you guys understand what an essence and attribute is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let
Yep.
me ask you a
Yes.
question. What is the essence of human beings?
So
The soul, yeah, yeah, but we need a clear answer. Like, what is a human being essentially? The human being is an animal. We have animal exterior, but then we need a quality to distinguish us from other animals.
Being able
There's a
to
specific quality.
like reasoning and
Yes, so reasoning, the rational animal. This is the classical definition of a human being. This is the classical definition that the mutakallimun use as well. But Dr. Taha Abdurrahman disagrees. Okay? And his disagreement is very good. I really like it. I mean, this is my new definition. He says the human being isn't the rational animal, the human being is the ethical animal. Okay? The distinguishing feature that human beings have is they have ethics. They can become really awful people. They can become really amazing people. Animals are created in one way and they just stick to that. There's no tragedy, revenge story, saints, piety. None of these things exist in the animal realm, right? It only exists in the human realm. So I really like this definition. You can take it if you want, but you can also just stick to the classical one. Okay, so I'm not going to get into this today. Actually, let me just go over it really quickly. The other thing that Aql does, it tells you about what's possible, necessary, and impossible. We'll review this next class, inshallah. So, but just by using pure reason, okay? When I say that something is possible, it means that there's no contradiction that can come into my mind when I think about the thing, right? When I think about, for example, this canister here, it transforms into a bird. I mean, is there a logical contradiction that comes into my mind when I think about that?
No.
No, right? So there's no contradiction. So from a purely rational basis, this is possible. It's possible. Mumkin. And the number of possibilities that are at right now is infinite. I mean, this could turn into a bird, it could turn into a snake, it could turn into a different type of can, there's just infinite possibilities, right? Now, when I say something is impossible, okay, it means that when I think about it, it gives me a clear contradiction, right? Immediate contradiction. For example, this I want to use an example that everyone will understand. Oh yeah, so 2 plus 2 equals 5. Is this possible or is it impossible? What do you guys think?
Impossible.
Impossible in any world, okay? Because mathematics, this pure logic, there's no 2 is one quantity, 2 is another quantity, and both of them, when you multiply them, it equals 4, okay? So it's almost like you're saying 4 equals 4, okay? It's the law of identity, okay? 4 equals 4, because there's 4 on the one side and 4 on the other side. That's all math, okay? So it's impossible that 2 plus 2 equals 5. Impossible, all right? Now, what is necessary? Necessary is when I think about it, okay? I get a contradiction. If I think it doesn't exist. If it's not the case, I get a contradiction. So for example, 2 plus 2 has to be what? 4. Okay? So 2 plus 2 has to be 4, meaning that it is necessary that 2 plus 2 has to be 4. Necessary. In all universes, in any type of state, any way that I can think, it has to be 2 plus 2 equals 4. Okay? And then we'll come to the proof that Allah is the necessary being. Okay? So if Allah did not exist, you immediately get a contradiction. Okay, and this is one of the strongest proofs, actually it's the strongest proof for the existence of God from pure reason. Okay, so what does the Aql do? Just to recap, it identifies essences and attributes. This is the abstractive thing. Okay, remember we talked about abstraction, and then we can also do some operations. We can do what's possible, what's impossible, what's necessary. We can make judgments. Okay, we'll talk more about judgments next class, inshallah. So this is just a prerequisite because we're gonna come into Tahawiyya. We're gonna talk about how Allah is independent of all things, how Allah is powerful over all things. All of these different things will give some proofs, and then I don't want you to get confused. When I use certain terms, hopefully this first class will set you up for the rest of the course and even the second module itself, right? So if you have any questions, inshallah, post them in the group. Next week we'll start off. We'll dive into the Hawiyya, and we will actually talk about Sunnism. Okay, who are Sunnis? Okay, so we're kind of doing it a little bit backwards, right? Because we're studying Sunni creed. So the next class we're going to talk about Sunnism, inshallah. So any questions? I know I went over time. Any questions? Okay, if you have any questions, inshallah, post them in the group. I don't want to keep everyone waiting, inshallah. So we'll break there for today. And
you said
yeah,
it's available on YouTube, correct?
yes, I'm streaming this on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. I'll go back in and go over it.
Okay. Jazakallah khair. Okay, I'll see you next week, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.